In a minute, I'm meet a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Give me that gabaga boogie, the baga baga, the baba do the bump bump bump.
Boogie's activity in July has been all over the place compared to previous months, especially when this was meant to be the start of his big comeback. There were 17 uploads on TikTok across a month, mainly awful comedy sketches, but there were of course a bunch of political rants about Roe vs. Wade because, well, of course there were. And of course he also creepily duetted with barely legal girls because, well, of course he did. Boogie also had a fight with a fan for daring to say that Boogie wasn't a good role model anymore, but Boogie of course said he was a good role model because apparently he likes freedom. The £450 man begging for money online between fighting with basically anyone who won't let him onto their podcast, whilst actively trying to deplatform anyone who talks negatively about him, is saying that he likes freedom and thinks he's a good role model. Alright, cool. There were also 6 uploads to YouTube, most of which did pretty poor regarding the view count. One in particular though was pretty controversial, and I wonder if you can guess which one that was. During July there were also 2 streams on Twitch, but weirdly there were 3 on YouTube, all of which have now mysteriously been privated and unlisted from his timeline. Apparently this is part of Boogie's new plan to begin to transition away from Twitch streaming to begin to stream more on YouTube, claiming he's doing it because YouTube actually promotes him whilst Twitch buries his content. Look, Boogie is a guy who streams maybe to about 200 people at most on his 2 streams per month. It's insane that he thinks Twitch even owes him something as such a small-time streamer over there. Generally the recommended channels on the homepage are people with thousands of viewers who stream countless hours a week. But what's his content that he's streaming? Like, obviously he's streaming the hottest new games, really getting a competitive edge on the other Oh no, he's just chatting streamer now, despite making his name off being a video game content creator. In the Just Chatting segment, in the Irish Morning, so before any American streamers even come online, there are well over 150 streamers in that category alone who have more viewers than Boogie does. And half of them stream hours per day, not just 2 streams in the entire month, totaling about 2.5 hours of content. It just seems very entitled of him to cry that Twitch has given up on him when he admits himself he never uses it. I don't know why he doesn't double stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time. Well, unless he's trying to double dip his audience. Because many of them stayed subbed to him for years despite him never streaming on Twitch. Now they'll move across and start to pay a membership on YouTube as well. Or of course he's just trying to manipulate his audience. Like I said, he could easily dual stream, a lot of people do it. Instead he'd rather stream on YouTube and suddenly talk about how he's always wanted to stream here and oh my god I get so much more attention guides and how he wants to do it so people will sign up for memberships on that account. But then the next day he'll go back to Twitch and suddenly say, hey guys, I was streaming on YouTube but I feel bad about doing that because you're also loyal here. But I just make so much money on YouTube. If you guys want me to do more streams here on Twitch, you should sub and donate. And then you go back to YouTube, rinse and repeat. Boogie's streams this month have been about 90% of his content though, and it mainly just consists of a dude sitting there and opening dozens upon dozens of booster packs. And for a dude like me who really isn't into Magic the Gathering, it's been a fucking slog. There have been a few good gems though, such as him repeatedly e-begging more than any streamer I've ever seen, repeatedly telling the audience how much the individual boosters are and how he might open more if they donate a certain amount. But then he's trying to manipulate them by saying, oh, I don't even think it's possible for you guys to donate that much though, is it? Like, he'll open a great pack, claim all the cards are worth way more than they actually are, claim he's made $1,000 in profit near enough in just one box, despite saying how he has like a dozen boxes that are about $5,000 in total. But then he'll e-beg from his audience to tell them they need to donate more money so he can go buy more boxes to open for them. Other highlights include...
So the point that I'm making is, I don't give a shit about Lizzo. It's about damn time. In a minute, I'm meet a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Give me that gabaga boogie, the baga baga, the baba do the bump bump bump. I don't know. I need cock, daddy.
He also weirdly calls trans people dudes in dresses, which is incredibly offensive to trans people. Weirdly, I haven't seen him being called out for this at all. Probably because no one actually watches his fucking Twitch streams, because it is just him sitting there for an hour and a half opening fucking card boxes.
Could you imagine having, like, your entire worldview crumble because a dude put on a dress? You're like, oh, God, no, Jesus, oh, look, Jeremy's got a dress on! Like, can you fucking imagine?
It's just such a typical Boogie thing, where he's trying to be woke and he just fucking fails at it like he always does. Where he's trying to be woke so he pictures a dude putting on a dress, or a girl putting on Daisy Dukes, or a girl opening an OnlyFans, or a dude sucking dick. Like, I love it. When he tries to be woke with women, he can't picture them in masculine ways at all. So he can't picture them putting on masculine clothing or anything like that. But for guys, it's all funny things. Like, oh, he's just a dude in a dress. Or, oh, look, sucking dicks, lol, lol, lol. But then when he's trying to be woke with women, it's all them doing porn or them wearing Daisy Dukes, which is like a thing women have worn for decades that's meant to be sexy. It's like he thinks it's not okay for a woman to wear men's clothes. It just has to be a sexy piece of clothing for his creepy attitude. He also went on a full rant about haters again, describing them as...
And they grasp what little power they have on the internet. They grasp what little power they have by getting mad on the internet and trying to get people canceled and take people down and affect people's speech and affect people's lives. And it's just the dumbest shit. It's just the dumbest shit. You know what I'm saying? I think they're some of the most miserable, lonely, just awful fucking human beings. And it makes me sad that they exist, and it makes me sad for their existence. You know what I'm saying?
He confirmed that despite having 420,000 followers on Twitch, he doesn't even have 100 paid subs. Also, despite Boogie claiming that he's a dog person, he describes his younger dog Leo as being a not very good dog because he's not well trained. Like, it's fucking stupid, Boogie. That's your fault. The dog's nearly a year old. It's your fault you haven't trained him not to shit in your fucking house yet. He also tells blatantly false lies, like during his cracking double masters pack, where he claimed that he hasn't been streaming as much because he's going to the gym so much more. This being a month where he streamed 5 times, for last month he streamed twice, and the month before that he streamed once, and before that, 0. Why say such a provably false lie? I don't like harping on Boogie's comedy, and I say that word with the biggest fucking air quotes you'll give me, but comedy is actually subjective. It does depend on the person, and it really just sounds stupid of me to say, holy shit, he's not funny, but holy shit, he's not funny. Be it his ridiculously long joke or pretend to eat expensive cards, which he's done through about 3 of his streams this month, or a point in one of his live streams where he decided to tell stories whilst opening boosters, and it went on for nearly 20 minutes straight, and was basically the most boring thing he's ever done because he's just not an interesting storyteller. But hell, his fanbase are also not funny and pretty much all fucking man-children who scream, "Do you drink my Mountain Dew?" at him at every single fucking convention because Boogie's entire legacy is a single thing he said 11 years ago. Probably the highlight of the streaming thing is that he called his brother on stream, and they spent about 10 minutes straight of basically the most painful, cringe-inducing dialogue I've ever fucking heard. Where I now realise that his brother is just as fucking weird and creepy as he is. With them pretty much just talking about each other's dick sizes for literally minutes on end, comparing their dicks to their father's dick size, discussing how big their father's dick was, then talking about porn for a while, and then talking about how Boogie's dick was bitten through by a dog when he was a toddler. And of course Boogie only brings this up so he can quickly say that his quote-unquote friend checked on him recently, and she confirmed that he only has one hole down there. Boogie also then finally asks his brother to confirm on air that they were abused as children, before hilariously his brother claims that they were 2 of the most abused children in history. They then recounted a story that was all over the place about how his brother's nose was broken by their mother because their brother was caught by police underage drinking. He lied about his details and had to get picked up by his mom, who for no apparent reason brought Boogie along in the middle of the night, and she then hit Brian in the face with his middle school lunchbox because he was going to throw up in the car, which apparently broke his nose. This apparently all happened when he was like 15, 16 years old. What late teenager has a school lunchbox with a sports team on it? What part of the story is even meant to make fucking sense? That she didn't want him to throw up in the car, but she was okay breaking his nose so there's blood all over the fucking car. But then they never mentioned that in the story, so obviously it's fucking fake. Like, you can't even keep one bit of your own fucking story consistent. And at the same time, you're 16 and you got caught underage drinking. Like, fuck right off that this is meant to be your evidence that you're the most abused kids in history, that you make up some random fucking nonsense story. And of course, this also gets put on Boogie's surprisingly long list of awkward phone calls and streams where he calls people to get them to speak to his audience for him and back him up, which is just really fucking weird manipulative behaviour. Boogie also ate shit from a commenter during the month where someone said he was falling off, and Boogie took this like really personally, talking about it several times throughout the stream, bringing it up a couple different times to try and prove the guy wrong. He started being really passive aggressive, saying, "Well, I'm still relevant enough for you to donate money just to say that." Then he claims he's done well because on YouTube he's lasted 16 years, most people don't make it that long, and then pointing out that most 48-year-olds aren't even relevant. It's just Boogie's way of trying to deal with trolls. He's trying to act like not bothered by it, but he comes across as very clearly upset and bothered by it, since he can't just let it lie and just move on. And speaking of passive-aggressive shit, Boogie also had a run with a troll at a convention where, honestly, it's just a pathetic fucking showing from both sides. Boogie first brought this people's attention on the 9th of July in a tweet stating that a guy had come to his panel, asked why he beat his wife, and of course in the tweet, Boogie manipulates his audience by claiming the guy paid just to go to the convention specifically to falsely accuse him, and he was doing it for internet clout. So already Boogie looks bad by trying to make a full backstory behind this when he has no idea what happened. He also claimed that this guy was escorted out of the event and they decided to let him back in and then offered to give him a conversation. Now, Boogie doesn't have the power to have people removed from an event, or have people search for a weapon like he claims in the fucking tweet, or even to allow them back into the con. That's a con manager's discretion. So a lot of people already thought this was fishy at that point, but hilariously a guy from Kiwi Farms was actually in attendance and confirmed that it did occur. Boogie then started a Twitter video where of course he portrays a guy stumbling over his words and sounding really stupid, whilst Boogie portrays himself as being on point and quick and witty, the usual shit. He also makes a point that the guy thought he had anger issues because of the way he plays Francis online, and Boogie makes the point that Francis is just a character, but that doesn't really work when Boogie has repeatedly claimed that Francis is part of him, just the part he doesn't want to be. He also says during the video that he would hit the guy, which kind of does play into the guy's argument that Boogie has anger issues, to be fair. He also claims that the audience were up on their feet screaming at him, approaching him and all getting ready to beat him up. And he also then says that he thinks security were going to kick the guy out, but wasn't sure about it, which kind of goes against his whole story earlier on. Like I said, a lot of people immediately didn't believe this, but Boogie did say that he had a video of it and he was going to release it. But like I said, there was a guy from Kiwi Farms there who confirmed that it did happen, and the guy did get up and ask him a question, but he kind of did it in a joking way and Boogie just got really pissed off. He also confirmed that there was no one on their feet trying to fight the guy, and despite Boogie's claim there weren't 100 people there's maybe about 40 people there, which was also confirmed by Boogie's video where he's playing Francis in the con, where he panned around the room, you can barely see anyone in the room. We did get the video though, about 3 weeks later, but we still got it. Kind of. Suddenly on the 29th of July, he dropped a video where he weirdly worded the title to be like a third-person expose video of him, which a lot of people think he was doing to try and trick people into viewing it. A lot of the video is also insanity, where he suddenly says he doesn't know why people don't like him from about 2016, saying he's been targeted a lot and he doesn't understand why. Even though a few days earlier in his birthday video, he outright said he understands why people target him from 2016 because of his political opinions. He also says there are fake rumours floating around, such as him being a conservative, which I've never heard, that he's racist, which did come from numerous creepy things he said about black people.
Give him that gabaga boogie, da baga baga, da baba doo da boom boom boom. I don't know.
And that he's also anti-LGBT, which came from him saying that gay marriage should be pushed back 20 years. Like, all the rumours spawn from Boogie, they don't just appear from nowhere. He also said people made up rumours against Mr. Rogers, saying that he was a sniper in World War II, because apparently people like to make rumours about good people to make them seem like bad people. Which hilariously is him firstly comparing himself to Mr. Rogers yet again, him calling himself a good person yet again, and him also implying that if Mr. Rogers was a sniper in World War II fighting the Nazis, he'd be a bad person. Good work, Boogie. This is why rumours spawn from Boogie. You can't go 90 seconds into a fucking expose video on himself without saying something incredibly stupid that people will latch on to. The full panel hasn't been released, which is kind of weird since Boogie usually does upload Q&As from his panels as like extra content, so it's weird that he hasn't released that, and the footage in this is so heavily edited that at parts it starts like mid-sentence when he's playing a clip, which is very suspicious when the whole exchange would have been maybe a minute or two long, so why not just play the whole thing unedited and then comment on it? And because he decided not to do that, you don't get to actually experience what really happened, and of course, what we experienced doesn't really match with what Boogie said previously. Boogie, of course, in the video talks about how he has PTSD and somehow connects this numerous times to the Frank Hassel situation, but he then thinks he handled this one well compared to the Frank Hassel one. Like, instead he just came across as like passive-aggressive and really demeaning, which, honestly, look, is fine. If Boogie just screamed, "fuck off, retard," I'd have been fine with that as a response because the guy is just trolling him. It probably would have just made more sense to be like, no, fuck off, get out of here, because the guy is just a troll. Boogie instead did his standard thing of trying to out-troll a troll, which is exactly what he did with Frank Hassel. The exchange was awkward from both sides because, firstly, the troll was a fucking idiot and sounded like he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, It was so awkward because of that reason that people thought that Boogie had just paid this guy from the fucking con to do it. Like, look, I don't buy into that though. Boogie's very clearly angry during this whole exchange, so I don't think he paid the guy for it, but the guy does seem like a bit of a fucking idiot. He claims that the guy also refused to talk to him afterwards, and he says this in his video, in the Twitter video, and his tweets about it, but during the video that he released, you can hear the guy specifically agree to talk with him afterwards, but Boogie instead won't let it drop and keeps going at it in public to argue with the guy, insult the guy, everything like that. Other congoers said that they never saw the guy again after that, which suggests to me that Boogie did complain and get him thrown out of the convention, and the guy has never come forward to post up anything about it online, so I don't know why Boogie's pretend this was done for internet clout. Boogie also did his usual thing of asking the audience to ass pat him and clap if they agree with him. Like, Boogie does this on stream a lot, and I hope Boogie realizes that this small convention hall of about 30 or 40 of your diehard fans clapping you isn't actually evidence that you didn't abuse anyone. I really hope he understands that, but he's going to use this forever as clear evidence that people don't buy it. These are your diehard fans, Boogie. I'd hope that they agree with you, you fucking idiot. At 2 points in the video, you can hear a single person in the audience telling the guy, I think you're being an asshole, and that I don't think this is the right time or place to be doing this. And that's it. Boogie in his head has fucking twisted this to claim that it was just numerous people screaming at the guy and getting up on their feet and approaching him to beat him up. It was one guy in like a normal talking voice speaking to this guy to try and tell him to fuck up. Boogie weirdly did the same thing for the Frank Castle situation though, where he claimed that Frank wouldn't even be able to get to my door because all my neighbors would rush out to defend me and beat him up. This is Boogie's narcissism in full effect, where he does believe he has his own personal army who will do anything for him, which kind of makes sense why Boogie used to call his fanbase the Boogie Knights. Oh yeah, and also Boogie never threatened to punch the guy as he claimed in his Twitter video. And that's a really weird thing to include in your Twitter video because it makes you look worse, but in Boogie's head it probably made him look really alpha male that he'd fight this guy and beat him up. Like, yeah, it doesn't really, it makes you look fucking stupid and like you actually do have anger issues. And of course, Boogie did make another Twitter video to follow this one up where he looks fucking terrible and he got so much pushback for it. He pretty much made a video to say how much pussy he gets and to say that he can't be abused as a woman because they are already settling to be with such a fat guy like him. He's literally claiming that a woman will not let fat ugly guys abuse them because they would just leave those guys. It's a terrible opinion and honestly made people question if he's ever actually even been on the receiving end of abuse. If his opinion of abuse is that immature and naive, that fat people can't abuse women because the woman will just leave them because they're not attractive enough to put up with the abuse. It's fucking insane. For a lot of people, this was the highlight of the month, mainly because of how fucking weirdly Boogie handled it, drawing so much attention to it to start with, then complaining about it, contradicting himself several times, and then waiting weeks before releasing a heavily edited version of the confrontation. People, of course, also pointed out how incredibly creepy it is that he's still offering to let fucking randos call his ex-wife from nearly 4 years ago to try and get her to back him up. It's really creepy, it's really weird. Boogie, just leave her out of it. Like, I know people will bring her up. You don't have to, though. It's actually kind of abusive that you're so tempted to let random people phone your ex-wife to talk to her. Now, onto the topic of abuse, which is a really heavy topic, but unfortunately because Boogie likes to talk about it so much, I kind of have to. The rumour of him beating his wife is an odd one, because most of the rumours about his wife are either that he emotionally abused her, or they're like, oh, she cheated on him, oh, he was cucked by her, oh, he was blacked, that kind of stuff. Boogie is basically the only person I will hear routinely talk about a rumour of him beating his wife. It got to such a point where even the Sam and Tolkien subreddit put a disclaimer in their mega thread where they were saying that they weren't accusing him of beating her because of how often he would claim that they were trying to say that, and they were trying to discredit the entire mega thread. People on the forums were even showing proof that this isn't an allegation made by the forums. Boogie is basically the only person who seems to routinely discuss this or make this allegation. I'm sure people want to have my opinion if I think he's abusive or not, and yes, I do think he's abusive. Physically, I'm not really sure. There's no specific evidence of it, but it wouldn't really surprise me at this point if he is physically abusive in at least some ways. Boogie can come out as often as he wants and complain that people don't accept that he's not an abusive person to women, but people just aren't going to believe him anymore. He's a near 50-year-old dude who specifically targets barely legal young girls who he often jokes about having mental issues and then pays them for their attention. He admits that he has anger issues, he admits that he has PTSD, and he often says or does stupid things when he depersonalizes. He also confirms that he has depression and will bait people simply by claiming he's going to kill himself, such as an infamous public blowout against the Quartering, where Jeremy organised a welfare check on him when Boogie told him he was going to kill himself. Boogie later coming out and blasting Jeremy all over Twitter, claiming he was only claiming that he was going to kill himself to Jeremy to get attention and not because he was actually going to do it.
He literally sent a suicide machine to my front door. How is that helpful?
He confirms that he suicide baited it to numerous fans and content creators at VidCon 2019 shortly after Etika killed himself and got a lot of attention from it, mainly trying to silence his critics and to make people feel bad for being mean to him. He confirms that Francis is part of himself and then films himself as Francis ripping apart an effigy of his wife after the divorce. He's incredibly argumentative and abusive with people online, often starting the fights and then claiming that if the person responds to him, they are bullying him and picking on him, and then often turning on his best friends and openly insulting and mocking them if they just don't give him enough attention. He routinely lies and gets caught in those lies, such as claiming that the Salmon Talkie subreddit swatted him 3 times until it was revealed that this hadn't actually happened, but Boogie still didn't accept it and doubled down, claiming that the police and him had a secret agreement to hide the records, until the police then had to be involved and had to confirm that this wasn't true. He routinely lies about his engagement with Frank Hassel to make himself seem like a total victim, despite numerous friends telling him to stop threatening Frank, because if he did keep threatening Frank, Frank would show up at his house, which is eventually what happened. He had a woman outright say that he was abusive, this being a girl he claimed was first his girlfriend, then was just a sugar baby, then was a stripper he barely knew, and now is claiming she's a stripper who was trying to blackmail him, but, despite this offence that he is listing, he has not taken any legal action against her whatsoever. This is a man who, only after being with Des for a few months, made a video to say how frustrated he was that she was out of town for a few days because of a family emergency, saying how hard it was on him that she wasn't there even though she was out there looking after sick family. He also stated that he'd told her he didn't want to get the surgery because he was scared she'd leave him once he was no longer dependent on her. He also randomly phoned Des on his birthday livestream in 2019 where he got her to confirm there was no abuse. However, even during that phone call, she outlined that he would randomly start fights and shout at her for not watching his videos even when she was working 60-hour weeks. And also, despite this being Boogie's evidence that he had never abused Des, he deleted the archive of it and claims that all of the copies of it on YouTube are edited versions to make him look bad during the call. Look, I could go on and on and on with the evidence, and that's why I think Boogie's abusive. He's an argumentative person who routinely tries to power play with people online. He targets young, vulnerable women as potential girlfriends. He fights with basically fucking everyone online, often having multiple month-long feuds with people who aren't even acknowledging him, such as Mudahar, Ethan Klein, or Moist Critical, where he will tweet about them routinely or make videos about them to complain about them, make shit up about them, call them bullies, call them harassers, call them fucking evil monsters. And then when something bad happens to them, he will make tweets to rub salt in the wound and try and fuck with them just because they didn't invite him on a fucking podcast. But then you'll turn around and expect his audience to think that the second he gets in a relationship, he's not like this at all. People are generally more abusive to their intimate partners than random strangers online. But Boogie wants people to think he's the exact opposite, that he's like the ultimate gentleman when dealing with women in real life, but none of his abusive traits carry across from anything he's done online. Hell, even last month, he seemed to be randomly starting shit with Jacob the Carpetbagger, and at the time I assumed it was just because of jealousy that Jacob was doing so much better on YouTube than him. Well, colour me surprised when Boogie suddenly this month uploaded a video mimicking Jacob the Carpetbagger's style and doing fucking terribly, especially in view count. Hilariously during this though, he accidentally deliberately doxed his fake girlfriend's face, who looks fucking horrified to be anywhere near him. Apart from this, the video was totally pointless, it's just him awkwardly waddling around a museum filming every exhibit. Just like his fucking pink sauce video too, which was totally pointless, where half his talking points seemingly were taken directly from Mudahar and Moist Critical, but then randomly he's the only person I've seen who suddenly defends the woman who is shipping out what is basically potion, made in her kitchen of overpriced shit that is poisonous by the time it arrives with you. But then Boogie, of course, twists it around to how he understands hate online and he feels so bad for her because everyone hates him and is so mean to him as well. His 40th birthday video was also terrible, apart from just to show that his fake girlfriend wasn't even at the party. Despite he claims he usually meets these girls through his gaming groups, they were all present, and of course she fucking wasn't. He also pretended to take accountability for the death of his channel once again, which is weird when in the very next video he claims he has no idea why people have an issue with him. His Francis at a Con video is basically the same as every other Francis at a Con video. They're fucking terrible and really not funny. The only highlight being him making a woman very uncomfortable by going up and talking to her about how hot she is. It's actually really uncomfortable to even watch because she genuinely seems so uncomfortable. I don't care if he tries to claim this as a gimmick later on, it was just a joke. Like, she's not that good an actress. She is genuinely uncomfortable being near him. His video about talking to God was just embarrassing. It's kind of like that sushi date thing from last month where it's so embarrassing people laughed at it and then all moved on because they were actively embarrassed for Boogie because it's so cringy. Well, basically he retells the story of his car crash from 2019, which is something he has told several times and every time it changes. Like, for example, in this instance, he finally admits that he was ticketed for distracted driving, something which he has outright denied and argued against for a near full 3 years. He doesn't really admit to what the distraction was, though, because he words it weirdly saying he wasn't looking directly at his phone, and I think it's due to so many people criticizing him for using his phone whilst driving 3 years ago. Like, it is funny to see him finally eating shit for something he did 3 years ago because of how incredibly insulting and condescending he was to people criticizing him all that time ago. But he also does leave out a whole bunch of weird lies, like where he claimed that the truck driver up ahead had a stroke and caused the crash, mainly because people disproved that this ever happened all the time ago, and then he tried to blame the police fucking again. This new version of the story revolves around him going to the emergency room, getting discharged, but being told that in 24 hours he'd be in so much pain he can't move. So then he calls a taxi company to take him to the hotel. However, the taxi company tells him that they're closing, but decide to take him anyway. And then when the taxi arrives, the woman's boot is full of just random stuff, so he has to put his luggage in the back seat so he can sit with her up front. Now, I don't know why he'd have his luggage with him in the emergency room, but alright, whatever. Like, obviously he's made this whole part of the story up just so he has to sit in the front seat, so she can then randomly hold his hand while she's driving so she can pray for him to have God reveal himself to Boogie. She claims that as well, the God had then once appeared to her as a state trooper, told her that she had breast cancer, then later appeared to her as some random healer in her church who cured her breast cancer, and it baffled the doctors. So in this world, God appeared, told her she had cancer, made her go and spend a lot of money at the doctors, then showed up later to cure it himself. Usually these stories have people being warned by God ahead of time to check for their cancer and it gets caught early and cured by the doctors. Or, someone has cancer and they're dying of it, but then God suddenly shows up and cures them of it. Boogie's decided just to mix both of these versions of the story together, so it makes even less sense. He also claims that when he got to his hotel, he randomly rang some random friend who also randomly told him to speak to God, so he decided to, and God answered, and then he claims he made a deal with God that he'd believe in God if God was able to get him to his sister's house the next day despite the pain. He then got in his car the next day and drove it to his sister's, and then was able to drive further after that, so he believed in God, but it's weird that he said he was driving his car, because in earlier renditions of the story he said he totaled his car. So, yeah, he finally believed in God because God was able to help him film a video with Jacob the Carpetbagger or some bullshit. And then God told Boogie that the world is a game of Sims and that he made Boogie specifically so Boogie could suffer. He then told Boogie that Boogie could relax because he'd already achieved what he was needed for by God, and God had prepared Boogie to be an incredible, strong person in the afterlife or something. And then he also told Boogie to lose weight to inspire people, which, kind of contradicts him when he said that Boogie had already been told that he had, accomplished everything. So I don't really know if he has to, lose weight, because then it's not really him having accomplished it. I don't fucking know. But it's just a really fucking silly story where Boogie's just making himself to be a martyr who's put on Earth to make a shitty, mediocre YouTube channel and become a lol cow as a form of suffering or something like that. And he also claims that God told him to lose weight, but that was 3 years ago and 100 pounds lighter ago. What? It's just a very standard Boogie thing where he has to add extra steps which actually make the story less believable. Like the whole, I phoned a taxi company, but they said they were closed, but then they decided to take me anyway. It makes the story actually less believable. But yeah, this video went on way longer than I thought it was. I didn't expect to really go into the abuse thing as much as I did, since originally I was just going to sail past it, but fuck it, I actually had quite a bit to say. So I'm just going to speedrun something like Twitter shenanigans. Firstly, he decided to weigh in the Nikocado being missing thing in a very similar way he did to when Etika went missing, coming off as having a really stupid opinion, trying to be interesting and unique, whilst also subtly shitting on the person for getting so much attention. When Nikocado resurfaced making a nice video for a fan, Boogie then made a whole big thing about saying that under all that fat, Nikocado showed that he's a great person and different to the character that he plays online. This is a whole new level of retardedness. That's like if Jacksepticeye did something nice, I could retweet it and go that just shows that all Irish people are great. It's so fucking dumb. Boogie also randomly shit on PewDiePie, trying to jump on the bandwagon where people were mocking PewDiePie because he insulted a deaf girl's fake nails or something. Boogie, instead of defending Pewds, however, points out that this is the least evil thing that PewDiePie did, literally using the word evil to describe what PewDiePie's done before. Then later in the month, he randomly compared himself to PewDiePie as a good person online. He has a bad reputation. He also suddenly remembers that he had a boxing match with Ethan Ralph about 20 days after he last mentioned it because a fan reminded him. He then tweeted at Ralph, insulting him. Ralph laughed at him once, and Boogie claimed he was living rent-free in Ralph's head. Seemed to not understand what that term means because he was the one who actually approached Ralph. But yeah, that's the video, folks. Have a good one. Bye-bye.